Hi, I'm Lieutenant Quatisha Epps of the New York City Police Department, and I am all things New York. I am a Bronx girl. I'm hailing from the Bronx, very proud of that. And New York is like it's an essence. Resilience to me is the getting through. It's not the going through. The most positive moment out of all of this is how much we all want the same thing. Beauty is what is real and raw and unapologetically inspiring. I feel very honored. It's a very nice way to say we appreciate you, and I appreciate that.
Last night at 11, we heard for the first time from the NYPD lieutenant who is accusing the former chief of department of sexual harassment. And that was only part of the story. Lieutenant Quatisha Epps is also at the middle of an NYPD overtime scandal that has shaken up the department. Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles has the rest of the story.
I did not sign off on any of my overtime. You cannot self-certify.
During fiscal year 2024, Lieutenant Quatisha Epps more than doubled her salary with overtime, taking home $406,000.
I can explain my overtime. I don't know if he was willing to explain
Your overtime.
my overtime.
But that's only half the story, according to an EEOC complaint she filed in December that says her boss, former Chief of Department Jeffrey Maddrey, demanded monetary compensation in return, including requiring her to fund a trip to Miami for him and his wife.
He says that, oh, you're going to start cutting me some of that overtime. So I would give him money. There was a day that he had me in his office after the bar exam. He told me to call his wife, act like I was like giving them a gift of, a gift of something. It's like $3,000.
Did you give them that $3,000?
Yes, I did.
Epps says it was during this time period that she was being sexually harassed and assaulted by Maddrey in what her attorney calls a textbook case of predatory abuse and victim silencing, using coercion to obtain compromising material, then weaponizing it to instill fear.
When he says that he wants something, I'm supposed to comply with it. He'll say, go, close the door, and close the door strip and send me something.
While he's still in the meeting?
While he's still in the meeting.
If you didn't?
There were not very many times that I didn't.
And as the overtime scandal was brewing in December, Epps decided to file for early retirement, which would require approval by Commissioner Tisch to leave the department in good standing.
And then he says that he's going to go upstairs and talk to her. I'll go upstairs and talk to her. I'll go upstairs and, but come here, come here, come here. And pulls my arm. And he takes me by my neck, pulling my head like closer to his groin. And he says, you just kiss it a little bit. Just kiss a little bit and let me get my mind right so I can get my mind right and go upstairs and talk to her.
1 month later, the Queens home of Maddrey searched by federal agents in this overtime abuse scandal that led to a shakeup in internal affairs. The chief and more than a dozen high-ranking officials NIA removed from their post. Maddrey denying the allegations of overtime abuse and sexual misconduct. His attorney telling Eyewitness News in response to this report, we look forward to total vindication. Epps seeking the same.
Maybe in speaking out, maybe other victims will dig deep and find some courage in a place where I couldn't even find courage, that they may feel like they don't have to sit quietly in these situations, that this is wrong.
After initially being suspended, both Lieutenant Epps and Chief Maddrey have retired from the NYPD without any departmental charges of overtime abuse. Maddrey, however, is still under investigation by federal authorities who have contacted Epps about their investigation. Darla Miles, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Hey, 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 it's Fun Helmet, and I'm gonna sing a song for you. gonna show you a thing or two. You'll have some fun now with me and all the gang, learning from each other while we do our thing. Gonna have a good time.
This is Bill Cosby coming at you with music and fun. And if you're not careful, you may learn something before it's done. Hey, hey, hey.
This is Letitia Epps. Okay, she is a NYPD's top was NYPD's top ranked earner. Okay, she made $403,000, and most of that was in overtime. The base pay is around $160,000 a year. To me, that's an exorbitant amount of money and shit. Okay, shamefully, I have to say, for I think it's an exorbitant amount of money and shit. Not because she, I'm not shitting on her being a cop and everything, but the fact that she made even more, double her salary in overtime and shit that she didn't even really do it shit. Someone crushed the numbers and it didn't add up, so they started investigating her. She is a cancer survivor. She's received awards, service awards and everything, decorated, I guess you'd say. This Quatisha Epps, because of the discrepancies in their earnings, was put in internal affairs radar and investigated. They did some kind of a forensic, forensic attorney or whoever, some forensic, financial forensics on her earnings and found out the times didn't match up. There's no way she could have earned all that money and shit. And she had made this money. I don't know if she had made it more than 1 year, but she had made $403,000 in 12 months, right? And I think the HR department, the payroll department should be audited. They should be audited because how could they process that without doing their due diligence and shit? But everybody's in on the grift and shit. Everybody's getting their palm greased. There's a lot of corruption and shit. I come from a city that is steeped in political corruption, top to bottom and shit. It's shameful and shit. And it's cost me some grief in my current life and shit. Just a corrupt city government. All right. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll talk about that at length and shit. But we can't do that right now, so we'll talk about Quatisha Epps and shit because, I feel a certain way, about it and shit. I could share an anecdote and shit, but I can't do that right now, legally speaking and shit. But basically, when she was confronted with this internal affairs investigation, she alleged that one of the reasons that she had earned so much money was remuneration for sexual favors with her boss. All right, her boss. The top cop. Top cop guy under Eric Adams. The mayor of New York and shit. Okay, top cop, one of the top cops. Okay, maybe I'll put it that way. Yeah, she had traded these. Basically, she made this overtime having sex with him in his office during work hours. All right. Yeah, allegedly he had anal sex with her. Okay, I'm not gonna mince words. I'm tired of it and shit. I'm not monetized or anything and shit. And we're adults. These videos are for adults, not children. If you're underage or anything, maybe you should click off and shit and go talk to your parents about what I just said. But basically, it was going in the back door and paying her for it through overtime. And she was repeatedly having this type of, sexual favors with her back door, for that money. So she was selling her body. She was a cop, right? A police officer. She was selling her fucking body and shit to this guy. well, you see the guy and shit. You know, it's kind of like I want to call him a simp for leading with the city's wallet to get some ass from her and shit. She's a cancer survivor and shit. I don't know. Some people say she was married, or some people say she was crossed the rainbow line there. I don't know. It doesn't really matter and shit. It just matters that it was a huge waste of, you know, public revenue. Like, she's a public servant and shit. And they doing this shit at work hours, man. And I guess that's part of the allure, and you know, being in uniform, just your pants down and your underwear down around your knees, getting, you know, bottomed out on the couch. You know, that some reports say they was, you know, not, you know, in their birthday suits in his office, just getting it in and shit. You know, who's gonna interrupt him? He's the top guy. Who's gonna interrupt him? But she says that he forced her. You know, he coerced her and paid her for her time. And that's the reason that she made the $403K in overtime. Okay, or $300 extra $1,000 in overtime and shit. Man, it's really sad, man. It's really sad. This is what it's come to and shit. You know, I always thought about, you know, when I was in college and, you know, I was like in the art department and shit, and a lot of we'll have group projects, and I gotta be honest, we didn't want a girl to be there, because they would come in and bring this kind of nonsense and shit and drama, you know, and issues and shit. And then, you know, one of the guys would be emotionally compromised and a simp, trying to make time with her and shit and fuck up the whole project and shit. So, man, we would shy away from that and shit. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Okay, no, you know, I'm a black man, I'm a straight black man and shit, and we get shit on every day, specifically along social lines, interpersonal lines, sexual conduct lines. They say that we're you know, sexual predators, and that we're all over the shit. And I want to say that the top guy who's going at her back door, who's busting her cheeks and shit during work hours and, you know, off time and shit, he's a black man. He's a middle-aged, overweight black man with 3 chins, and, you know. And I'm gonna talk about him. All right, but I want to talk about Letitia Epps. There's no explanation for a police officer to be in this situation and whatnot. All she had to do was report him to, she could file a sexual harassment lawsuit, be on a paid administrative leave, go to the union, because they keep things close-knit there, and report his ass. She didn't do that until she was under investigation. That's very telling and shit. Now, it makes me sick and whatnot, because I know in my heart of hearts, I feel like she was all in on getting her cheeks clapped and shit. And there's been some photos of her, you know, maybe I'll post some here. It won't be what I've seen and shit actually posted on YouTube. I'm amazed. There's pictures that, you know, I don't know if he leaked them or she leaked them, where she's showing off that, you know, her figure, you know. You know, I can't post those pictures, but like, and there's pictures where she's obviously showing off that she has a rather large ass, okay? Rather large ass and shit. And this simp, he saw that shit, he wanted that shit, and he was willing to pay for that shit using city money. It's a goddamn shame. He made enough money himself to just simply pay her off the books and shit. But, you know, there's, you know, if he does that, then they both know what she is. And, you know, a lot of women have no accountability, going up in my mouth, you know, sexually speaking, and the bad decisions they can make sexually speaking and shit. They have no fucking accountability. So, you know, to make her feel better about selling her body to him and shit, they put it on the books. Okay, he could have just paid her for her time. You know, he could have paid her, you know, each time and shit, and, you know, gave her some cash, like, you know, physical cash. And, well, you know, he can't cash app her. He's the top shit. You can get those records, you know. And these women are stupid as fuck, man. These women are stupid as fuck, man. She's a cancer survivor, so she's leaning in on all that, the victim shit, the crocodile tears. It makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me sick to my fucking stomach looking at this shit. Okay? It makes me sick to my stomach. Not just because she's a cop, but because I don't want to say it, but like, women always fuck up the spot, man. They always blow up your shit with their dirty panties. Okay? Dirty panties, man. This simp was trying to get some ass and shit. If she was about being an actual police officer, she would have reported his ass. She could have go to the federal government and reported his ass. Simply because of her plumbing downstairs, they would take that serious and put him on administrative leave and shit, despite his position. And if they didn't, they would at some point double her any remuneration she would get for being harassed and shit. And ran up in her ass and shit. And right after he went in her ass and shit, it's the malicious black women love to make false sexual allegations and shit, which is what she's doing. Now, right after he went up in her ass, blue wads in there, she could have went to a physician and had herself examined and had those materials removed and documented and shit. Okay? And she could have reported his ass, and he would have been up shit creek. He'd be in protective custody behind bars. She didn't do that shit. She took the money. Okay? She's a prostitute. Okay? Now I feel a certain way because she's a cancer survivor. Shit, and it's ravaged I lost a lot of good members in my family to cancer. The actual patriarch of my father's side, and he was a great man. He went too soon. And I hate to see a woman hide behind that when she knows she was a malfeasant agent of chaos in the NYPD. She brought down the integrity of the department, but they always talking shit about the public and shit, but they don't have any personal accountability amongst themselves. Nothing that we can see or understand and shit. Good people deserve to have their faith rewarded and shit, and these people fucked it up. I'm not even standing on a Bible or nothing. I'm not gonna die on this fucking hill. She was trading sex, she was using her giant fat ass for money. She made $403,000. She was the top earner in NYPD. And if I was a cop, that would chafe my ass and shit, okay? Especially if I was a black male cop and shit, heterosexual cop. Any man, male cop and shit, I'd be pissed off if I heard that bullshit you put out there, putting your life on the streets, and she up there between the sheets getting her back door cleaned up, Yeah, she tried to. I've heard her tell the story several times. Each time she changes the fucking story. Like sometimes he's just, he's breathing. He's a heavy breather, and he's just taking his pants down while she's talking to him and shit, and telling her to, assume the position and shit. It's like, I'm protesting this while I'm on my hands and knees on this couch in your office, or I'm touching my toes and shit. He just hitting that shit. She sent him some photos. What are they doing with the photos? Photos that show that, there is somewhat of a consensual nature to their arrangement and shit. She's a sugar baby, right? More than a police officer. She should be ashamed of herself. Okay? Just for doing that shit. Why can't she just take physical cash and shit? You don't hear me shitting on her for trading her ass for money and shit, because all we hear from women is how everything is transactional, now. There's no room for organic. They gotta think about their bottom line and the future retirement and shit. It makes me vomit in my mouth thinking about all of this bullshit, When women have devalued themselves physically to us and shit, emotionally as well and shit. You can't trust them and shit. Especially the women in our community. You really can't trust a good plethora of them. There's good women there, but they don't waste their time on social media. They don't sit on there all day in their cars making rage porn videos, making misandrous bait, making videos that make me make videos and shit, okay? Because I think that, we've drawn the line in the sand as men, and we sometimes must respond to shit. Otherwise, the cycle goes on and shit with no pushback. This is the least you can do, litigious, without incurring legal proceedings. All right. I've seen pictures of this woman. She has a curvy figure, and Dad Simp saw that ass, and he decided to lead with the city's wallet and shit. They should all be ran out of business. She should have to pay that fucking money back. They should take all of that goddamn money back. I haven't looked to see what happened. I don't think it really matters, because there's legions of Quantisha F's out there and shit that no one's even going to look at. Dirty women that are ill qualified for the position that they hold. Position of authority, just there to collect the check and nothing else. Across the board, they're using their asshole, to rack up coins and shit. And a lot of them still end up broke because they can't manage their illicit gotten gains and shit. So they have to continue doing that even into their 50s and shit. Like some of these women, I have grandchildren and shit, man. They're out there, prostituting themselves and shit, debasing themselves. And it's sad to see and shit. A woman come down like that. You already hit the fucking wall. This one is a cancer survivor, police officer, decorated and shit, celebrated. Beautiful woman and shit, some pictures, look like a whole snack. and she's nothing but a whore.
The Black Patriarchy. A non-existent group of fictional black male power brokers not discredited, erroneously jailed or outright killed by the minority majority who look the other way as they work tirelessly to shame, oppress, and outright take out the altruistic black female populace of the honorable democratic United States of America. 3K's inset bitches. These evil wealthy members of the black patriarchy are the sole reason for all the ills of the black community, walking, talking, holding down jobs, and doing everything up to and including giving their very lives in service to their baby mamas and baby's motherfucking kids. Their motto that strikes fear into the hearts of black women everywhere: bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks.